25th, 2023 Winchester Planning Board meeting. We have a full house today. We have lots of people who are joining this evening, as well as all of our planning board members. So why don't we do we are being recorded by WinCam, and I'm going to turn on the Zoom recording right now.
Recording in progress.
If you do not wish to appear on the recording, please turn off your video and turn off your mic. We're also following Zoom bomber protocols in that most of you cannot actually unmute yourselves. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand, and then I will make it possible for you to unmute yourself, and you can join the conversation. Okay. Our roll call vote is Nick Mazunos.
Present.
Nick, I can't hear you.
Here. Present.
Oh, it's just me. My apologies. Carrie Layton.
Present.
Sally Dale.
Present.
Ching Scott.
Present.
And I'm Jim Jarris. I am also present. We are joined this evening. Where'd Nancy go? By our recording secretary, Nancy Polcari, by Assistant Town Engineer Brian Manter, our liaison from the Chamber of Commerce, Richard Leaf, and a bunch of other people who are here for the various items on our agenda. We have a very packed agenda, so I'm going to jump right into it. Updates. Let me first show you our agenda. Okay. Okay, let's go to the agenda. So, very quickly, I have a couple of updates, and then if any of the board members have a quick update. Here's our agenda this evening. Very action-packed updates. We have some minutes, 2 ZBA petitions, a pre-application meeting to talk about waivers for a CBD petition. We're going to talk about our town planner candidates. We're going to look at scheduling for the Waterfield lot. We're going to talk about the MAPC Holton Swanton Cross report and next steps. We're going to be speaking about Foreman Place, which is our North Main Street consultants. Next steps. Emily Innes, who is our consultant for public outreach, will be joining us at 9, and then we'll adjourn. So very quickly for updates. Council has finished their work on the covenant and the HOA for the Rocky Ledge subdivision. Sally and I took a look at it, and I think it's good to go. They'll probably be before us on August 8th for final review, and then for this board to sign off on the subdivision Mylars, which will allow them to start their work. We are going to have the first public hearing on the Waterfield lot will be coming on August 8th. You all mistakenly, but you got it. You got the full submission in your packet on Friday. That wasn't supposed to go in there, but that's okay. We have hired Brian Sikeli for a few hours a week to help review that permit and other things, and he hopefully will get us something by sometime late next week. And one of the things that we still haven't done is we still need a written decision for the 10 to 16 Mount Vernon decision. Neither Sally or
when is the due date for that? Because I know it
10 to 16 Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
I think it's in the past. I don't recall.
I thought it was 3 months.
I'm not sure what it is, to be honest, Nick.
Because I know that if we miss the deadline, I think it reverts to Levitt, and we lose everything. If we miss the deadline, I think that's.
I do not have that information at hand.
Okay.
I can tell you that neither Sally and I have any time to write this. So if someone wants to step forward and write it, it was a split 3-2 decision. So there's a majority minority report on that. But if someone wants,
can we get help from Jay maybe?
Well,
we-
we have to write the decision based on, we can have Jay put it in order, but someone has to write down what's, Jay will not put in.
Okay, so can we use what's in the minutes, I guess, to write the
Yeah,
decision?
I suggest we use what's in the minutes and we look at, we have to look at the video to make sure we capture all of the discussion. The minutes are certainly helpful. We also have to look at all of the review documents from all of our parties, our review board. So historic, design review, we have a consultant. The bylaws require that we respond to each of those review documents as to why we agreed or disagreed with them.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know where to begin for any of that stuff, but I know that we have to get something in.
I would suggest starting by just looking at the videos and just writing down what happened. It's just, there's no bandwidth between Sally and I to do this, so it's just sitting on our plate. So,
Well, maybe we need to get Jay's help, because I mean, otherwise we're not going to get it done.
right, but Jay's not going to review the videos and he's not going to go through all the documents. That's not what town council is really there for.
Right. I mean, but I think anyway. I think we're gonna,
I agree. If we want Jay's help, though, someone has to step forward and do the summary of what happened. So I'm open to anyone who wants to reach out to me. I can work through that with them, but just no bandwidth on this side of the screen. So those are the things. Any other quick updates from the board?
I just had a quick thing. I know yesterday or last meeting was it's the first time we saw the maps and everything regarding 3A, and I just want to kind of reiterate that we do have to all get to the same page and make a kind of a presentation to town meeting that's united. And I thought to that end, I wanted to look at the maps and with Carrie and come up with some possible recommendations regarding them to submit to the board. That might
go right ahead.
Okay.
Just if you want to do that, just again.
I mean, obviously, we understand the parameters and the need to have enough, have enough square footage, I guess, and have it contiguous and the many problems. But there might be something that we could add that would kind of make it even a stronger presentation when we get to town meeting in terms of some of those items. I thought it might be a worthwhile exercise.
Yep. Go ahead. Just let me know when you want to present it to the board. And then
I guess I was thinking that since it's such an important thing, I know this is a really busy night, but we should have at least a few minutes each meeting to kind of address status on where we are with 3A, because I think that's probably more important than anything else that we're dealing with in terms of getting it to a point where we can get the votes to succeed.
Sounds good. I would say the status from this evening is nothing has changed since our last meeting.
Right.
So
that's it. That's all I wanted to. I didn't want to drag it out.
Nope, I appreciate that. Thank you. So why don't we jump to the meeting minutes? And we have one set of minutes, which is on July 11th, 2023. Are there any comments, amendments? If not, I welcome a motion.
Yeah, but I have some edits. I'm sorry, I was muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I also can't see anyone right now because I'm screen sharing. So go ahead.
Right, and I realized that I physically raised my hand, but it was moot. So on page 1, just there's in your updates, you talk about the Cross Street project. And I was under the impression that he was also reducing the number of units, but I could be wrong about that.
I believe the number of units is the same, but I could be wrong as well.
No. I don't.
I think this is a record of the meeting, but I think that they did reduce it from 9 to 8.
So we should put in just a note saying that this was incorrect. If you could just it wouldn't amend what was said, but it would be like a footnote saying this was incorrect. This is the actual value.
Yeah, a footnote's a good idea.
Okay.
And then, so that was that only one. And then on page 4, just really quickly at the bottom, under the MBTA 3A technical report and draft zoning, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th bullet that begins with the words "the third scenario." It says it removes existing properties. It should say it removes some CBD existing properties.
That's correct. It does not remove all of them. It removes some of them.
Right. And so that would be that bullet. And then the immediately next bullet, I would like to insert, so the town common and congregational church are included in the land area only to maintain congruity. So insert the word only. It's a complicated explanation what only means, but it's accurate.
The congregational church has a different status than the town
Correct.
common.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
only to
they're both-
maintain congruity.
They're both labeled as being. Well, let's just keep it to what's being said, and if there's,
Right.
if we need to make
Okay.
sure it's correct,
Okay.
then we'll
And
put in
then-
a footnote, because, you know, at this point, my memory is a little fuzzy of what actually. We'd have to pull in a new consultant to tell us again exactly what was going on right now.
Right, all right. Land area to maintain congruity.
Okay.
And, or actually, it's contiguity is the word, contiguity.
Okay,
And then on the last page, the second line, where it says that the town maintains continuity, it should also say contiguity. That is like a major
yeah, okay,
concept of the law. And then the third bullet on the last page, Winchester meets the requirements of 3A without changing any existing zoning. If that was what was said at the meeting, then that should be recorded, but again, I would recommend a footnote.
yeah, it requires it within the, it meets the requirements within the existing dimensional zoning is what I recall saying.
Okay, so without changing any existing dimensional zoning.
Right,
Okay, that would be an adequate fix.
That's an important add, probably.
yeah.
Okay, and then again, under public comment, second bullet, Chair Jarius, last line. Also some CBD properties with commercial space on the ground level. So take out
Yes, there's some.
and say some CBD.
Yep.
And those are my edits. That's all I have.
Okay, any further edits, corrections, comments? If not, then I welcome a motion to approve the minutes of whatever date this is.
July 11th.
Minutes of July 11th, 2023 as amended.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, roll call vote. All in favor? Oh, no, sorry, I gotta actually ask it. Nick,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
Sally,
aye.
Yi Ching.
Aye.
I say aye as well. Thank you very much. Okay, our next item on the agenda is ZBA petition 4001 3 Crescent Road.
And I'd like to invoke the I-Ching rule, and let's try to keep our comments to maybe 90 seconds, if that's possible.
I
If-
would
If
also
not, it isn't.
recommend that as well. Let me first ask, is there, let's shoot, hold on one second. Let me bring that up. I need to bring up the list of participants. Okay, so this is, let me read this to make it official. This is a petition number 4001 to the ZBA for 3 Crescent Road, seeking a special permit under 355. So as to be permitted to construct an addition located closer to side property line than permitted as of right. Properties in the RDB zoning district contains 6,122 plus or minus square feet. That's a very non-conforming lot for the RDB. Why don't we, first of all, let's go to our assistant town engineer, Brian Manter. Do you have comments on this petition?
No, the engineering department does not have any comment on this project.
Okay, I'm trying to scroll to there were a lot of pages for a very small project. So let me see if I can get to.
I think it's page 32.
Yeah, but I've split it
Yeah.
up one so that I could get there faster. So of course that's no longer 32. It was 32, but thank you. I think it's right there. Okay. So this is, even if I split it out, it's slow. That's the wrong direction. It's my apologies for a slow laptop. Okay, I'm just going to leave it like that and show that the total change is to put deck on at the back. Are there any comments from the board?
So my only clarifying comment is that the proposed addition is no closer to the non-conforming sideline than the existing non-conformity. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so that would follow the standard in 355, where it would be determined, at least in our conversation, that the modification would not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure. Is that right?
That's my personal
Right.
belief. Yes.
So is there any other question before us on this?
I do not see another question. Any other members of the board? Is there a motion?
I would move that the planning board would recommend to the zoning board of appeals favorable action on this request for a special permit.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Nope. Okay, roll call vote, please. Sally,
Aye.
Yi Ching,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
and I say aye as well. Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone who showed up for this. I didn't see any hands raised, so
Oh, Aaron Weinert has.
I'm sorry, there is one hand raised. I apologize. Why don't we?
I simply just wanted to say thank you. That's all.
Okay, well, thank you for being so quick. And can you just say for the record?
Yes, sorry, Aaron Weinert, I'm architect of Studio Draw, the architect for the project.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And then I guess I get to mute you now and you can take your hand down. Okay, let us move on to ZBA petition 4002. And this is I think Zoom is making my laptop really slow. This is ridiculous. Okay, this is petition 4002 for 75 Bacon Street, seeking a special permit under section 5110. As to be permitted to have the width of the driveway entrances greater than 10 feet. It's located in the RDB. and the lot is 10,210 square feet. And there is a very nice drawing of this, which eventually will load.
I'm sorry, do you have, did you say 10,000?
Isn't that 10,210 square feet?
I think the document I'm looking at says 18,210.
Oh, can I not read?
I don't know. I'm looking at a.
Yes, 18. I apologize. I can't read. It's 18.
Okay, just checking.
No, thank you for saying that. If I need new glasses, I think. Okay, so one of these. This, I believe, is the main,
Mhm.
and so,
I think the
Uh,
next one shows, it shows clearly the shift
yes,
of the apron.
Yep.
This one.
is there, so, Brian Mantor, Assistant Town Engineer, anything from the engineering department on this one?
Yes, just a little historical context. This property received a building permit in 2022. At that time, they went through a stormwater review. However, in that application, they provided, there was an existing site plan that showed that this driveway entrance that we see on Cottage Street was for 14.5 feet at the street line being defined as the limit of right of way or behind the sidewalk. The engineering department has conducted a field measurement recently and confirmed that that 14.5 feet was an accurate measurement. To give a little historical context to what the width of the sidewalk driveway is at the sidewalk. The engineering department does not see any pros or cons to maintain 18.5 feet or to maintain the 14.5 feet. And we don't see any concerns with relocating the driveway 10.5 feet up Cottage Street away from Bacon Street. There are no hydrants or telephone poles that would obstruct the ability to access the driveway.
So let me, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is the actual existing apron is 14 feet, not 18 and a half?
The width at the, you see how there's that line that says sidewalk, that dark line? Yep, right there.
Yep.
Yeah, so according to historical existing plans from prior to the building permit being submitted, that width was 14.5 feet.
So
Yep.
14 and a half, right? Pardon my really primitive drawing here, right there.
And then the apron extended out, it flares out, and I think that came out to be about 19 feet at the apron.
Okay, so
So-
we're talking, the apron is what's happening out at the street level.
Correct. Yeah, right at the edge of pavement.
Okay. I will make my embarrassingly not straight lines go away. Any comment from the board?
My only comment is just that when I look at 5.1.10, there's very specific instructions that seem to be met with this. It says that the maximum width of the street line should be 20 feet and the driveway should be at least 10 feet wide. It says that the driveway should be at least 20 feet from an unsignalized intersection, which I think that's what it is, right?
Correct.
And that's like all the rules that we have.
But
So
I thought the crux of this was that a total frontage of the driveway should be a max of 20 feet. So with the Bacon Street and the Cottage Street added together, it's more than 20? Is that, and
I'm
what?
sorry, I didn't quite get that. Can you say that
On
again?
one particular property, on any particular property, especially if you have an L like that or two-way exit, that the maximum driveway width together should be 20 feet. Is that, am I
Oh,
correct?
I see, because they have a second entrance. That's what you're
Right.
showing.
Right. So are we saying that their pre-existing condition is allowable even if they change its location, right? Or should it conform to the new regulation? Because the purpose of that, for some of you guys who don't, I think, know the background, was that we wanted to reduce the amount of driveway so that it was more pedestrian friendly.
Right. So, Brian, can you, I don't know if we need engineering to tell us this. I agree with you, I Ching, that we wanted to keep it at 20. This is pre-existing. The question is, I
Max-
guess, by moving the driveway, would we recommend that they narrow it down so the total is at 20 feet?
Well, it says that the maximum width of each entrance at the street line, Iching is exactly right. That if there's a second entrance to a driveway on a single lot, first of all, they have to be 40 feet apart from each other. And second of all, each one can be no more than 10 feet at the street line. So regardless of the apron, it's the street line that can't be more than 10.
Right. And so are we saying, is this any more detrimental to the neighborhood if it's moved and then kept at its width? And I would say probably kept at the width that the historical drawings had shown it, and how the engineering department had measured it. Is that any more detrimental? And I would argue that it's not any more detrimental, especially if they can improve that driveway so that it's more visible as a pedestrian. The bushes and the curb cuts and things like that is a little bit more clear. I think that it's not any more detrimental.
I agree. I think from my point of view, it's an existing one. By moving it away from the corner, they are actually increasing the safety, because they're, the further away from any sort of turning traffic so you can pull out of the driveway or get into the driveway more safely. So I think that's a plus. So I agree with you, Ching. I don't think it makes it any worse than it already is. So
Could I make a motion to for favorable action according to engineering drawings? Is that
well, I think that Brian, what you've said, Brian, is that these drawings are accurate.
Well, I think what we see here on your screen is accurate to what is currently there. And what's currently there it's the engineering department's interpretation that was part of the construction entrance. So they widened it as like a construction part of their building permit and construction of their addition. And that the existing driveway prior to the work being done was 14.5 feet.
So,
there's a big difference, of 4 feet.
yeah,
So
Maybe-
is there someone from the project who's with us this evening? If you could raise your hand.
Scott Grady is here, Deb.
Okay, let me, I mean, if this was just widened as in order to get okay, you should be. Yeah,
Right.
so Scott
Well,
Brady,
I
go
think
ahead.
we go back to the 14.
Hi, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, terrific. Okay. Yes, this is a simple request of shifting an existing driveway apron. The driveway apron, and again, correct observation, 14.5 feet on the homeowner side of the sidewalk, and then 18.5 feet on the town side of the sidewalk. And that's because of the addition of 4 feet of asphalt to the existing concrete apron. When that occurred, I don't know. I've only been aware of it throughout the whole project. I don't know that it was added for the project. It could very well have been there prior. It's in putting a documentation for this special permit that I noted it and included it. So obviously we'll abide by what you feel is appropriate. The wider is obviously makes it for safer and more functional access in and out. But we do recognize that with the two existing driveway openings that were exceeding what is typically now expected for new construction on lots in Winchester. I think the other plus I just want to throw in is that there's very little traffic on Cottage Street. It's lightly traveled. And we're not even requesting a curb cut or any scenario like that. As you saw in the photograph, it's really just the asphalt going to the concrete sidewalk and then right out to the street. I don't know if that helps, and any other questions I could shed light on.
Yeah, I guess what's the question in my mind is, and it's something, Brian, if this is something you can bring forward from your previous drawings, is that if this apron was widened as part of the construction, just in order to facilitate the construction, then I think that it would need to go back to the apron width prior to the construction, because I would assume, you know,
That would be reasonable.
yeah. So Brian Mancher, if you have historical plans for this property from some previous project, correct?
Yes, we have the existing conditions site plan for prior to the building permit or the addition being built. That was in 2022. I just want to clarify that on definition of terms, the apron is the area from the sidewalk out to the Cottage Street. And then, so we're talking about the street line, which is on the backside of the sidewalk. So when you look at the drawing on your, did I freeze up here?
I can still hear you, Brian.
Okay, yep. So if you look at the drawing and it says relocated apron 18.5 feet, and you were to continue those lines up straight, that indicates that the driveway width at the street line or back a sidewalk is also 18.5 feet. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that the existing conditions was 14.5, and at the apron existing is not almost 19 feet.
I think
Okay,
we're calling,
And that
so
was prior to construction. So the width at the apron or at this edge of pavement, I think is accurately defined here as 18.5, 19 feet.
okay, so what you're saying though is that, so now I'm getting a little confused, because if the existing apron is aligned the way it is, then half of it doesn't even intersect with the driveway. Right? So is the entire driveway being also shifted?
Yes,
Okay, so this is not the existing conditions now. Existing now has the driveway coming out lined with the existing apron,
Correct.
and you're moving both.
correct. Yeah, you'd have to move the apron to be in alignment with the driveway.
Yeah, but the driveway looks like the driveway is 18.6 feet essentially, if it's to line up with the I mean,
That's
this
what
isn't
we're
14 feet
proposing
right here,
to align with the relocated apron. Yes,
and it's going to be 18 feet across,
that's what we're proposing.
and it's currently 14.
According to Brian, that the driveway side existing is 14.5 feet.
That's correct.
So I can see what you would be looking at then is the relocated driveway being 14.5 feet on the property, and the apron could still be 18.5 feet.
So if I make
Sidewalk
my
to Cottage
motion,
Street. Does that make sense?
No, I'm sorry.
yes,
I
I
need,
think if I could make my motion, I would make a motion for favorable action and built based on the dimensions of the pre-construction drawing submitted to town. The width on the driveway of the pre-construction drawing submitted. Would that be right, Brian?
Yeah, I think you're hitting it right on the head that the existing width as shown on the existing condition site plan for the building permit in 2022.
Right, so that would be my motion.
Okay, so that is to maintain the width as shown on the existing conditions drawing.
No, would that be for both the driveway and the apron, whatever was on the existing conditions drawing?
Yes, the width of driveway and apron as shown on the existing conditions drawing from the pre-construction permit or the yeah. Okay, just for the permit of 2022. Move that the width of the driveway and the apron be as shown on the existing conditions drawing from the construction permit of 2022, but shifted away from, what the heck is this street? Bacon Street by 10.5 feet. Okay, that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm not seconding it. That was
Is there
Carrie.
a second? I didn't.
I think Carrie's second.
That was me.
Was that a second, Carrie? I'm sorry.
That was a second.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion?
I have questions about this. I'm
Okay.
sorry, because I know that we're short on time this evening, but why is this not an opportunity to bring both driveways and both aprons into compliance with our current zoning bylaw? And why is it necessary for the apron to be wider than the driveway? Will that simply encourage the person to cut the corner and possibly have a pedestrian impact because the person would not understand that someone could cut the corner with a driveway?
I think that could be, but the issue was that it doesn't have any more detrimental impact on the neighborhood than existing. And so that the pre-existing conditions, the benefits are carried over with the changes.
Right. I don't want to
So-
take a lot of time on that, so I guess that's.
So I think, Brian, could you provide perhaps some information on why the apron might not be the same width as the driveway?
I think it gets back down to how we interpret the zoning regulations. Presently, I think the zoning regulations defines the width of a driveway at the street line. And the street line is defined as the edge of the right of way in section 10. But I don't think the regulations are entirely clear on the apron or the area from the edge of the right of way through a sidewalk or a grass strip to the edge of pavement. So that gives a resident an opportunity to make their the apron slightly larger, but I don't think the regulations are clear on how large that can be.
And I would add to that, Brian, that making an apron larger than the width of the driveway is creating additional impervious surface on town land. And if everyone in town was to have an apron that was 4 feet wider than their driveway, the cumulative effect of that would be a significant runoff impact. So I don't understand why you need an apron wider than your driveway.
I know, I thought the existing conditions were apron and driveway 14 feet.
Well,
Isn't that the case?
That's not what I understood. I understood that well, if we go back to 2022, and if the apron in 2022 was 14 feet and the driveway was 14 feet, and if you go by the logic of this motion, then that would be 14 and 14, but it certainly wouldn't be 18 and 14.
Right, maybe we should make it 14 and 14.
Or
So,
whatever was pre-existing.
so let me just say, I think we amend this. So currently, we have a motion that's been seconded. Is there a motion to amend that?
I would amend it to say that, the driveway and the apron width be restored to what was the driveway and the apron width in the 2022 existing conditions drawings. And if the 2022 existing condition drawings show that the apron was actually wider, I would say, well, don't replace it at that width, replace it at the width of the driveway. What is the reason for the apron to be wider?
Okay, so the existing motion already restricts it to the width from that pre-existing conditions drawing.
Right, and I'm
And
saying
so-
if it was 18 feet in 2022 existing conditions drawing, I'm saying that it would be good if, when they rebuild it, because I saw that it needs to be rebuilt, that they just limit it to the width of the driveway. I don't understand why it has to be wider.
Okay, so a motion to amend is to add an extra constraint that the apron be the same size as the driveway.
I think
Is
that's
there a-
reasonable.
I so move that as an.
Is there a
amendment.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay,
Good.
is there any so now we need to vote on the motion to amend. Is there any discussion on the motion to amend? Please say no.
No,
Good. Okay, let's have a vote on the motion to amend. Carrie,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Sally,
I,
Yi Ching,
Aye.
Diab says aye as well. Okay, so the motion before us is,
Did we vote on the motion?
not
yes,
yet.
I just want to read the motion
Oh,
before us
okay.
as amended.
Oh, okay.
So the motion before us is to approve the width of the driveway and the apron, with the apron to be no wider than the driveway, as shown on the existing conditions drawing from the construction permit of 2022, shifted from Bacon Street by 10.5 feet. That is the new motion. Roll call vote. Sally,
I,
Yi Ching,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
and Diab says aye as well. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time and attention to this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Take care.
Thanks. Our next up is we have a we're at 8 o'clock. We're only 10 minutes off. No, we're 20 minutes off already. How does that happen?
oh, it's
Okay.
7:50. We were gonna, oh yeah, we are 20. Okay, sorry.
So let's see. Chris Mulhern was here. There he is. He's still here. I'm going to make you a co-host, Chris. As there, so let me bring up the documents for this. This is a request. Come on, get out of the way there. Where does it go? Okay, so this is a project in the CBD. It has not actually been submitted to the planning board yet, which is, it does require a permit for exterior work. And this is a request for waivers. Let me, so Chris, do you want to go real quickly through this?
Sure.
Which
Thanks.
would-
Can you hear me,
want to show-
Diab?
Yes, would you like to see the images first or
Yeah,
the floor?
The plan is good. We can see this. This is the existing condition from Church Street from the common. What we're planning to do is to put a small addition on the back left corner of the existing building. So it's essentially an extension of this left-hand brick wall back and filling in this back area that you see in this photograph.
So
It's
it's gonna,
400 plus or minus square feet.
so it's just essentially taking this brick building and pushing it back by that amount.
Well, so it's offsetting from the brick by about 2 feet
Okay,
to maintain clearance from the neighbor, and then pushing back to line out with the back of the house here on Dick Street.
okay, so let me,
If you have the plan, there's the plan.
yeah.
You can see
is
there's
this-
this 2-foot offset from the brick face, straight back, 23 feet wide, aligning with the back wall of the house. that's perpendicular to Dick's.
And this is a one-story addition with a little bit of a
Correct.
skylight.
Correct. This is, the client is Bespoke, who are a custom kitchen manufacturer and designer. They're located on Thompson Street at the moment. They've purchased the building and they want to move their showroom into the space on the first floor. They need a little more room than the building offers right now.
Okay. So let's get to the waivers you're requesting. Partial waiver of delineated wetlands, 2-foot contours, floodplain contours, wetland river buffers, context within 400 feet. Does anyone on the planning board think that this waiver should not be granted?
I think the only one that I did think might be reasonable to include would be the view. I think you had a view of the street view from Church. Because it's an extension and that offset building next door, you can see a little bit of the addition from that perspective on Church Street. If that, even if it were kind of a drawn on to an existing street view image, I think that would be helpful to understand what the street impact might be.
Hold on a sec. I'm trying. Are you talking about this particular one, 73163?
Yeah, is that the one where it is I think a rendering from the street, perhaps?
Yes, but Iching, if you could hold off your comment until we get to that, I just want to go through each of these in line.
Oh, God.
So we can check.
I'm not sure we have the time to do that.
We have to vote on each one.
Really?
So is there a
So my comment would be that within these things, and I've read through these, that would be the only particular one that I would try to include. So
okay,
those are my general comments.
So can I get a motion to approve the partial waiver for 7363 as listed on the screen?
So moved.
Is there a second?
This is just for 7316-3.
This is just for 7363.
Things right there.
Oh.
Just for delineated wetlands, 2-foot contours, floodplain contour.
I second it.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote? Sally?
Aye.
Iching?
Yeah,
Nick?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
I say aye as well. Okay, 73164. This is a site development plan, a waiver for 2-foot contours, delineated wetlands, wetland and river buffers.
so I move to waive.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Iching?
Aye.
Sally?
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
I say aye as well. Thank you.
Yeah, can I make a motion that we take them all as a what do they call it at town meeting, a consent order, or?
Well, Iching has
So my only one is 7.316.7.
Right.
Okay.
So we can, why don't we do this? Okay, 73165 and 73166.
So moved to waive it.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, Sally,
Aye.
Iching,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Carrie.
Aye.
Okay, I say aye as well. 73167. This is yours.
Yeah, so I moved that the waiver not be granted. I would like to see just a 3D aerial view, even from like a Google map, as well as the eye level from Church Street.
Okay. Is there anyone who would move to so Iching says she doesn't want to see the waiver. Does anyone want to provide give the waiver? Is there a motion to give the waiver?
No, I would second Iching's suggestion if she made it a motion.
I just need a motion to see
Oh,
if
I
there's
thought
a
I made the
waiver.
motion
You
to
made the
not.
motion to not have a waiver. Sorry.
Correct.
Right,
Is it-
okay.
Okay,
So I
Sally
second, I
seconds.
second the motion to not grant the waiver for 7/3/16/7.
Okay, roll call vote. I Ching,
Aye.
Sally,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
and I will abstain. So that's 4-0, one abstention to not grant points .7. Okay, .8, .9, .10. Does anyone have any concerns with any of the rest?
No, I'm looking at them. So, if there's no change in parking, and if the open space and resource issues will be shown on the landscape plan, and if the historic conservation items will be shown on the building elevations, and if the rooftop equipment will be shown on the building plans, and the stormwater management plan, well, okay, so those three right there, no, excuse me, that's four. I could move favorable action on granting the waiver for 7/3/16, 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Okay, what about 12?
Well, so doing stormwater management plan, I don't want to take that one at the same time because it's a different question, and these
Okay.
four are information that
so
will be
8,
shown
9,
on other
10.
sheets.
So let's look at 8, 9, 10, and 11. We have a motion to approve the waiver on that.
I'll
Is
second
there
it.
Okay, roll call vote. Sally,
Aye.
I Ching,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
I say aye as well. Why don't we go to Brian Mancher for the stormwater management plan? Is this addition large enough to trigger something from engineering?
Based on conversation with the architect and their engineer, it's indicating that they will not trigger the stormwater management plan. However, an official review is yet to be conducted, but I'm anticipating that they won't have to conduct stormwater management.
So is it your recommendation that we waive this request or we hold off until we get further information?
I think that you could waive the request once the like official existing and proposed areas have been provided, and then the engineering department can conduct the measurements and then provide official official review. However, I just want to make it clear that the engineer and the architect are aware of the requirements, and we've spoken informally about it, and I know that they know the the process, what they're trying to do.
So why don't we hold off on this waiver until we get a definitive response from engineering? Waiver number 14, 7/3/16/14, housing waiver. Is there a motion? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I Ching,
Aye.
Sally,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
and I say aye as well. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your patience.
Question of clarification. So this is not, this is a preliminary vote of the planning board. We will be the permit granting authority because it's a CBD property with exterior design, right?
Yes,
Okay,
this is only saying that when they submit,
pre-application meeting though.
this is saying is that the submission packet does not require these parts.
Got it.
That's all
Thank
it's
you.
saying.
Thank you.
We're not commenting on this proposal at all.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you
we
for your
are-
time.
Thank you very much. Let us move on now to our town planner discussion. So let's see. So why don't we just open it with, so we have before us, we currently have two candidates who we have interviewed last week. Everyone's had a chance to think about it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so I can see everyone. We've had discussions with We've had input from all of the members from the search committee that have been sent to the planning board. I had discussions with the references that were provided by the candidates. Very shortly, for the public, we had one reference for, I contacted one of Ms. DeGrando's references, and that was a reference from some time ago when she worked as an architect, not as a planner, and so the reference was unable to provide any information on her as a planner. There were several references from Mr. Herman from his internship at the Boston Public Development Agency when he was in grad school for architecture, from one of the people he worked with at Co-Urbanize, and from one of the people that he worked with from Beacon Communities, who worked with him both when he was at Co-Urbanize and also after he formed his own company to do essentially public outreach consulting. All three of those references spoke highly of his public outreach commitment and abilities. So now I'd like to move on. We do have a couple of people from our search committee who are with us. I'm going to invite them. Oh, we just have the one. Hi, Nick.
Just the one. Hi,
Hi,
Jack.
Jack. So I'm going to open it up to the board. So we have the decision before us is, do we wish to offer a position to either of these candidates? Do we want to reopen the search to find another candidate? Each of you probably has an idea of the strength or weaknesses. So if you'd like, why don't we go around very quickly and you can give your opinion of the two candidates, and then maybe we can come to a decision. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't I start with Nick?
I guess I've been thinking about this. I can feel a palpable sense of exhaustion in the room about getting a town planner. I think I think that we need someone with serious hard skills that are at par with the grade of the position. And I don't say that lightly, but I think it's kind of our obligation to pursue that level of a candidate. I guess to put it in perspective from the way I see it is that neither of these candidates would have been helpful tonight with our questions. And there's a steep learning curve for both. However very personable and very pleasant they may be, that learning curve may be as great as the time it would take to find a candidate that I think meets the grade of the position that we're looking for. And that isn't to say that I didn't like them. I like both of them. I enjoyed the international perspective, and I enjoyed Taylor's attitude. It's a great attitude. But I think that we'd be selling ourselves short. I think we need someone with some hard skills. And I guess that's my feeling at this point, that we need to really give that some serious consideration.
Okay, thank you. Carrie.
So I recognize both the fatigue and the demand that's been on Dieb and Sally while we don't have a planner. I feel like I had a great sense of Brian Kelly, and I really appreciated the write-up. I can't think it was Jack who put, we're not going to replace him. So, we can't be looking for that direct translation. Very different candidates. I think I enjoyed our first candidate more than I appreciated her candor. I thought her answers were specific for someone who didn't know Winchester. I thought her attention to detail was decent. But I think she'd have a tough time here. I think the things that I appreciated about her might make it difficult to bring everyone together in this town. So, and I got the sense at the end that maybe her timeline's tricky for the timeline that we're hoping for. Taylor was great, warm, personable. I definitely wanted more detail, especially from someone who's so close and probably had some experience with more detailed answers, even if they were kind of incorrect. I felt like the general sort of attitude, the general sort of esprit de corps was there. Like, I will learn it, I will figure it out, I will do it. But I felt like his kind of access to a basic infrastructure for what needs to be built is maybe like, there's a lot to build there. But I mean, he's definitely, I think of the two candidates, I think he would have a much easier time bringing people together in town. And he seemed really enthusiastic to take the task on. And he certainly has seen enough, sort of aspects of the position. And he spent a lot of time talking to Brian and getting a sense of what the work would be, which I appreciated as prep for, sort of presenting himself. So I think between him and the unknown, he's not a terrible choice. I think he would definitely need to prove himself here, and he seemed eager to do that. But I'm not on the interview committee, so I don't know what we have in hand for other potential candidates. I don't know how deep that bench is. Maybe someone can suggest that might help those of us who are wondering what we're missing if we commit.
I think we can get to that after we do our round, just so we don't bias people's opinions. But let's see who's next on my screen. Sally.
I had the impression that Jenny would really struggle in the role in our town due to a lack of familiarity with Massachusetts general law and the nature of municipal government, towns and cities, but particularly towns in Massachusetts, and that she did not seem as articulate as she would need to be in that position. There were other reasons that I thought that it would be hard for her, partly the timing, but I guess those are the main ones. And with regards to Taylor, I actually think that notwithstanding his some degree of lack of experience as a formal planner, he has a fantastic foundation for jumping into this job with about as much experience as Brian did when he jumped into the job. What was it, 9 years ago? I make that statement somewhat loosely because I haven't actually compared, but I do see in Taylor the aptitude, the enthusiasm, the technical skill set, the interpersonal skill set, the communication skills, the can-do attitude, and the energy that no job description can capture. And that the technical knowledge that he needs to acquire over, let's say, in the first 48 hours, he'll acquire 3 years worth of learning. No, unrealistic. But I think that given how long we've been at this, and given that I had one of the headhunters that I talked to in the country say that town planners, municipal planners, city planners is one of the most difficult to fill positions in the country right now. And that Taylor is all those things I just said, that we would do well to offer him a position at a level that is commensurate with the amount of experience that he has, but with clear goals and objectives, clear standards, and a very strong onboarding plan, because what we put in is what we get back. And so my recommendation is that we proceed with Taylor along those terms.
Okay, thank you. I Ching?
I'll try to be short. I want to add to what was being said by only just saying that I do think that Taylor was the stronger candidate. And so I'll focus on that a little bit more. I do think that he has the skills and some of the background necessary to understand the position, but I do take pause a little bit at the brief experiences that he's had. I think, for the BPTA in particular, it was an internship, and that was a great environment to learn from, but it's not a solid perspective, and his architecture background is great, but it isn't urban planning. And those two are fairly significantly different, as I'm, learning myself. So, and a little bit of hesitation as he introduced himself to of starting a new company, and then sort of stopping so quickly. And so I do take pause of that, but he explained himself well, saying that he did want to get more engaged in the community. And I think that for us going forward, I do feel like he would have been a perfect assistant planner if we had that position. And I wonder if going forward, I know he didn't apply for the interim position, but if that is a possibility, I think that should be offered. But also, in the next 3 months, if he does take the position, the only thing I'm wary of is if we continue the search and somebody more senior and more with more experience comes in, I think it's an awkward hire. Should we hire him as this position now and then have somebody senior sort of come in as an assistant, say. So I do think that our ask is higher than what he's offering here in terms of skill set. I agree with Nick on that. And but I think that he has the ingredients to sort of ramp up. In 5 years, he would be probably ready for the position that we have asked for. But I know it's bleak out there, a little bit difficult. So I mean, he has the ingredients for it.
Okay, thank you. So I would say that I see the biggest plus of Taylor, I believe, is his dedication to public outreach. I think it's very impressive. And I think that is actually his biggest skill set. I am very concerned about the lack of a formal planner training, just because we're in a complex environment in this town, and I think there's a skill set that comes with that training. Even just going back to, so even though Brian had like 9 or 10 months, Brian Zacchelli, in whichever town he was in before he came to Winchester, he did actually have formal training in planning. He got a degree from Tufts prior to that. So I think he's got to step up. So that's my biggest concern, is I just don't know, the public outreach is something that we really need. And I think that Taylor would do a tremendous job at that. And we know that we have a lot of initiatives coming up that require outreach to our community. And I think he would be great at that. I share the concern, I think, with Nick and I Ching about the skill set in terms of planning. If he were to, for instance, one of the things that we pushed Brian to do was to get an AICP certification, and that requires, if you have 2 years of education as a planner, then you need to have another 2 years of practice in the field. And then for someone without a degree in planning, you need 4 years in the field. So if we were to say, can he reach that level, then we're talking about 4 years out and I really think we need someone more senior. So I think we are in a kind of a bind in that if we can't offer him an assistant planner position because we don't have that, we don't have the money, we don't have that position available. It's on the books, but it hasn't been approved. What we have is the full planner. So I don't know what's possible there. And I agree, I Ching, if we were to offer him sort of the temporary position that we've set up, if we get a more senior person, I'm hopeful that next spring we will get, town meeting will approve funding for a second person in the planning department, but I don't know, I don't think that, I'm unsure. I don't know. I have mixed feelings. In response to the question from Carrie about what other candidates we have available, Jack, you are an independent member of the search committee. Do you want to say something about the other candidates that were out that the search committee looked at?
There was a third one who did not respond to his invitation to meet with us. And beyond that, I'm not aware of any others.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a couple who were just coming out of who had not yet graduated from.
Oh, that too, yeah. I
Yeah,
didn't even
so-
think of those.
Yeah, so we
Still in
didn't.
school.
Yeah, we
But
have
the guy
had.
who didn't respond, I kind of liked him. Conboy, I think his name was. He lived in
Yeah.
Hawaii, and he was in the process of moving to Medford, I believe.
Yep.
So he was promising, but I would have liked to have met him.
He
So-
was our strongest candidate,
I think so.
Other than our previous candidate who
Yes.
we interviewed.
I would like to know, if we can continue to try to get in touch with him, but limit the amount of time that we try to do so. I mean, all I can think is something happened. They were in the middle of a big move. They just had a baby. They're moving from Hawaii to Medford. There was all kinds of things going on. Otherwise, why would he not respond to a job interview request? So I just wanted to get a clarification on what happened, not to delve into deep personal issues, but just something that we can understand.
There were repeated attempts to contact and none of them came back. So I don't even know what we would do. We have no information on where they are at the moment.
Right.
So other than a phone number and an email address, both of which have not gotten no replies from those, there's not much. I don't know what else to do.
Oh, okay. So we really just have the two candidates that we interviewed most recently.
So I would say that we need to repost at least until even, and just keep it there. I don't know why it timed out, but
We
this job
chose to
position,
find- we
Yeah, we
chose-
should have it up.
we should have it up until we fill them.
Absolutely, it should be up until it's filled. That is correct.
Okay, well, previously we had opened it up, I think, from March through the end of June. And so it was up for several months, so we can certainly set it up for another few months. I don't know if the town's software allows us to make it open-ended, but I will see if that's
Well,
possible. Is
I'd
that-
like to just return to the discussion of Taylor if we might, because I am a dissenting opinion on bringing him in and I would like to make my case.
I think that, well, I don't know that the board has actually made a decision to move one way or the other, so. Is there a motion, is there a motion to offer the position to either of the candidates? Let's start with that, make it on the more.
I would make a motion that we offer the position to Taylor, but before we further define the motion, that we would talk about what he does bring to the table, what he needs to bring to the table, and the fact that there is a salary range that has 17 steps to it. There's plenty of room for us in that range to say, yes, come in and do this. And we can even compare it to the salary range of the assistant town planner. Come in and do these things and meet these benchmarks and help us get all this work done. And by the way, one of the things that we need the most help with is community outreach, which happens to be something that you've been doing and have proven yourself good at. And let's put together, like I said, very clear benchmarks and learning deadlines or whatever we want to, however we want to articulate it. But it has been a long haul to have no town planner in this town. And I appreciate, I think it was Carrie that said that Diab and I have been working really hard to make up for that. I am not in favor of not filling this position. If we need to offer him a position that is an interim grade, if we need to offer him a position at the very bottom of the grade and give him the 9 years and 17 steps to become the top of the line. But I don't want to just drag this on. This is really difficult. As a key player, I am not in favor of postponing.
I mean, given the landscape of candidates that you're presenting to us, I think he's got a great attitude. You know, we're going to support him. I don't know if I agree with sort of like underfunding him and hoping he, you know, like he has his own business. I think being able to close that and take the position probably requires a certain salary. So I think us deciding to like put him at the bottom peg and assuming he'll do a Herculean effort to move up is like, I don't know if that's the best approach. I think we just have to, if we make an offer, it has to be with our full confidence that he'll answer our open questions with enthusiasm and pay him commensurate with his experience and the position's demands.
So let me give you a couple of data points on that. So the town planner is a grade F, which is a horrible name for a grade.
It probably feels like that some days, though. You guys can speak to that.
So, man, I need new glasses or need to print bigger. Step 1 is $78,000 approximately. Step 17 is 116. That's the range for town planner. Assistant town planner is at essentially 66,000, give or take a couple hundred, up to 98,000. So I don't know exactly what level would be commensurate with the person who has, I mean, it's just square hole, round peg, square hole. I think I said that backwards.
Well, I think
But
I'm sorry, I'll shut up.
no, why don't we continue around? I Ching and Nick, what are your thoughts on?
Is there any way to hire him as a consultant for us right now? I think, you know, in the same way that we're hiring back Brian Zakelli as a consultant, are there ways that we can hire Taylor to do some of the community outreach, some of the projects that we have on hand that really need, you know, work on, and to lighten the load for you and DM and Sally, and then from then on to be able to sort of evaluate in 3 months or so and see about that. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, it would be helpful to have a consultant or to have someone. I mean, we've talked about an interim.
Can I respond to the notion of the consultant and help with outreach? We have on our agenda for this evening a conversation with Emily.
Correct. You're right. No, maybe more so of a project-based. I don't understand.
I think we're jumping into something.
Hold on a second. Can I just don't understand why we can't hire him as an interim.
So
because there's no interim. There's temporary, there's assistant, and there's town planner, and the assistant position is not funded.
Right. So I'm sorry to say interim, but I meant the temporary.
Right, because interim means that they would be.
Okay, I meant temporary.
So let me answer a couple of things. So I don't know. I would have to ask for I think the funding would probably come out of our personal budget, not personnel budget, our personal budget. And we could offer, I don't know that my discussion with Taylor is he's looking for a permanent position, not a temporary position. He's looking for a place to essentially be there for some time. So I don't know that he would be willing to take the temporary position.
So the risk of this is to lose him altogether if we offer a temporary and he doesn't accept it.
I think that would be the risk. I don't know. Yeah, we can't, you know, if we were to offer him the town planner position on a probationary period, I think that, you know, that's something where we would, you know, we could do that, but
we should look at the town personnel.
I don't know if that would help us. I mean, we're still not going to get the hard skills that we need that could take 2 to 4 years to materialize.
So it was going to cost the town $25,000 to do a national search for a senior municipal planner. And I presented that information at a planning board meeting, and it was deemed not an appropriate move. We should post the job, find a good person, and hire them.
I think that everyone thought that we would have candidates who would, at the level we wanted, apply for our job, and that we wouldn't need to do that,
Except for the shortage,
except for the shortage, apparently.
which is driven not only by Massachusetts having MBTA communities all scrambling to find people who understand planning, but it's also across the entire country. Communities are struggling with housing shortages and municipal growth, and they're
So-
struggling to understand how to do this. So the planning profession is highly in demand.
So let me just try to, I understand, I'm trying to get us to a point where we can either say we're not ready to make a decision or we are ready to make a decision this evening. And so I think that the fact we don't have a perfect candidate, but we know that. I don't get the sense that the board is behind, there are enough people on the board behind hiring Taylor now to move forward. I just think that, I would like this board to be mostly unanimous in its approval of the candidate, just because this is the person who's going to be working with the town for hopefully the next at least 10 years, as long as Brian Kelly was around. So if there's a significant number of the people on the board who are unsure if this is the person for the job,
I I don't think he's a huge risk. I think there'll be work to get him up to speed, but I think he's excited. I think there's a sweet spot between experience and technical expertise and sort of like embedded and entrenched, Kelly was such a great candidate. I think we all want to find another candidate like that. And I don't know how much of a unicorn that was.
So Nick and I Ching, both of you seem to be leaning away from Taylor.
I just want to think ahead, and it is an unknown whether or not we're going to get another good candidate, and I don't want to have somebody in a planner position and then hem us to that should there be somebody who is more capable to not be able to hire, say, a planning director on top of it.
Well, it's not a director level position. It's a town planner level position.
I know. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And we did acknowledge that Brian exceeded this description by a lot.
Well, we got used to
as
him
we
exceeding it.
did that. It's true.
I'm thinking that we're not going to come to a decision tonight, but
Yeah,
then maybe
I don't know that we're going to get the relief that we really need from this hire. That's my concern.
It sounds like, Sally, you do think that we'll get some relief, or you will get some relief. And Diab, do you enough? Do you feel enough that you would, there would be enough skill set to take some of that?
I do.
Work from you.
I do. I think that Taylor has an enormous amount of energy and interest and motivation, first of all. He's also he would be a full-time employee, which is whatever it is, the 40 hours a week that our town employees work, which right now that would be an improvement over 0. Or if you count the 3 hours a week that Brian Zakeli will make us, it would be an improvement over 3. Okay. And there's plenty of work that needs to be done immediately that is right inside his sweet spot of skills. And then there's all the time in the next 10 years to get up to speed on the complexity of the profession of zoning. And we can put expectations in there about 6-month and 12-month reviews. We can look at the town human resources manual to find out what is the current town practice regarding probationary periods for salaried middle.
Yeah, I would be into that. I think the probationary period would be a nice part of that.
Here's my concern. And my concern is that
probation sounds difficult for the guy.
It's typical in most companies.
It's pretty typical that you get at least a 6-month. I had a 6-month. Here's my concern. My concern is that when we go to town meeting next spring, and something comes up and someone's going to turn and say, what does the town planner say about this? They will say, this is not a person with planning expertise or with a degree in planning. Can I trust what they say?
That's a
I'm
compelling
concerned.
argument.
I'm concerned that if we hand a complex project that, for instance, the Civico project, that while there's public outreach components, there's also zoning and planning components that we have to work through. We do have Brian Zakelli helping us, that's true. Those are the things I'm worried about. I'm worried about that the knowledge that we have gotten accustomed to, and where is it going to come from? There's a limit to how much we can rely upon legal, because legal is not planning. Legal has, they have land use attorneys, but they aren't planners. So there's only so much we can ask legal to do to pick up the slack. So
What did his references
I
say?
wonder,
his
Approaching
references-
new projects or attention to detail or those sorts of things.
those sorts of things, they were all highly complimentary of those skills. I'm
thinking, I wonder if I may send an email out to someone like Betsy Ware and just do an informational interview about what is the nature of a temporary planner and how hard why we can't.
We need someone who is,
He has a business. He's not going to close a business for a temporary job. No one would.
yeah. So
No, not talking, not him, but just
I see.
just a temp planner. I mean, that seems to
we've
have
had the
stalled.
temp planner out and nobody has really responded to it. So I would, we are running really late tonight, and I would really like us to, I don't know that we're going to come to a decision this evening.
Yeah, we maybe need more time.
I think we need some more time. I would be willing to have another meeting, a very short meeting where we just discuss this, maybe next week or sooner. We just
I
need
don't
the
know.
72 hours.
During the day.
We can,
Yeah.
we can try doing it during the day. Again, I think this is a subject that's a great interest to the community. So it is going to be recorded and on WinCam or on their stream, I hope. So we can do.
I think it's very important that we continue this conversation.
So, I mean, at this point, the earliest we could have it if we posted, we need 72 hours. So we couldn't even get it in by Friday. So it would have to be either Monday or Tuesday of next week.
1 o'clock.
Can we do this offline?
We can do this offline. I'm just letting you know. Is everyone up for a meeting on Monday or Tuesday of next week?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let us continue this discussion.
Yeah.
Let us move on. And I think we're going to have to skip ahead on our agenda and let us Waterfield lot schedule consultants. I think maybe we'll bring it up next Tuesday. The idea is that we are going to have to line up some consultants prior to or as part of the Waterfield proposal. These are design, stormwater, it's traffic.
Bye, Jack.
Hi, Jack. I think I'm missing one.
Design, stormwater, traffic, and
Sewage.
well,
Sewer,
water
water.
and sewage, I think, is together,
Right.
and Brian Mentor
Yeah.
can confirm that. But
So
traffic impact, water,
yeah.
sewer.
So
I think that's it. Design.
yeah, so the engineering is setting up a meeting with the developer next week sometime, I think, to go over everything. So they're going to come up with a suggestion for a stormwater reviewer. This, engineering works with several firms. They're going to come up with a suggestion. I forget the name of who they're presently thinking of. I think we've lost Brian Man. No, we haven't, Brian.
Brian
Who,
Manchester.
who is it that engineering's thinking of?
Weston Sampson.
Weston Sampson. Okay, traffic, the town typically uses Tool to do traffic. They're very familiar with the downtown. They've done several studies already, so financially for the town, it makes sense to go with someone who already knows things. And again, this is not to design, this is simply to review. So it's a different skill set. For design, we're going to probably want, we've used Philip Chen prior to this on 10 Concord. And I Ching has, I think, come up with a list of possible firms to reach out to.
So how this happened?
Yeah, I
with
think
Tim
we might want
Covers
to
is
talk
that-
about design. I mean, that might be
Can you hold
something
on
we
a
can talk
second?
about.
Yeah,
Hold
hold
on a
on. I Ching was speaking.
So how 10 Conference happened was that I gave Brian Zakelli a bunch of firms that I thought did urban design and historical urban design well. And then Brian contacted various folks, including somebody that we Winchester had worked with before. What's his name?
Dennis Carlone.
Dennis Carlone, and then Philip Chen from Anbeha. So I still have, contacts with people who are in the business who do these things. And I did reach out a little bit, but I haven't gotten a lot of responses, of positive
Yeah,
responses.
I just, we could get a list of firms to reach out to, and then
Yeah.
we could see who responds. And then, this is, we want someone who does have urban design, who has worked on urban design in large projects. This is a big 60-unit project. So
Right. I'd like someone also who has some historical sensitivities.
well,
We all would like that, Nick. I think that
They are.
Anybody doing work in Boston, it
Mhm.
needs to confront that. So
Mhm.
so we just need, Nick, if you have people that you want to suggest, let's come up with a short list that we can talk about, and then we can invite people to come before the board and interview. That's what we did on 10 Concord, 10 Converse. So, it's, the resources we have available to us are all the board members to reach out and find people that we can talk to.
Yeah,
So-
I will reach out and come up with some names too.
Yeah, so to come up with some names, you don't actually necessarily have to, once you get the names, maybe someone on this board can take on the task of calling them up and setting up interviews. That would be useful. Okay, so our first meeting for Waterfield is on August 8th. They are looking to get their permit through by October. I don't know if that's possible. We are starting a little later than I think anyone had hoped. In part, they would like to be able to have the permit process done so that when they go to the state or the feds or whoever they go to ask for money, that they have something they can show that this project is well on its way. So I think that that's an important consideration. So I think that we will be, there's at least 3 or 4 meetings on this project. So we're definitely going to be talking about design. We're going to be talking about stormwater. We're going to be talking about traffic. Traffic, we know, is a big issue with the downtown. So there's the first meeting in 2 weeks will essentially be introductory dog and pony show where they present the project. And then we're going to be scheduling meetings, I think probably 3 weeks or 4 weeks after that. And we'll have to get, the key is to try to get our consultants in line quickly so that there isn't a delay in the process. This is a very important project for the town. So I think we want it to be done well and correct. And and we also will be getting legal. Legal is going to be with us every step of the way. I believe Jay Tellerman himself will be joining us at each of the meetings so that if we have any questions, he's definitely going to be there on August the 8th. So that's just a heads up. You've got the designs and hopefully that's that. So our next step, I see Emily Innes just joined us. We are Emily, in case you're wondering, we are really late.
And Michael's here too.
Yes, he may have wanted to lurk, so.
I'm happy that he's here.
He's been here for a while, which kind of surprised me, but.
Hi,
yes.
Emily.
Emily, I'm gonna make you a co-host. So right now, again, we are late. It is 8:50. So I think, wow.
Is
Let
Josh
us-
coming to this evening's meeting?
Josh is on vacation. So
Maybe we
no.
can put that off then.
I think we can put that off. It's a large document. What I would like is, can we get someone to take point on reviewing that document and getting back to Josh on that?
I
If
can
there
do
are
that
any of
because
these.
I just spent the whole day reading it with a fine tooth comb.
Okay.
I was gonna type up my comments. So you
So
want me
if
to
there
share
are-
them with the board before they go to Josh?
I think that
Well,
would be.
I guess my only thoughts is that we shouldn't, I don't believe we should change any light industrial and get rid of that. I think we need to keep all light industrial that we have.
That's, yeah,
That's
so
it.
that's a discussion. So that's the discussion the board will have.
Right.
about- But
Okay.
right now, we're just talking about the report. We're not changing any of the contents of the report. This is
Okay.
our consultant's opinion of what should happen. So we just want to make sure the report is complete and that there's nothing that's missing in terms of what we would expect. So I would like it if more than just Sally looked at this report.
I will also look at it.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you,
So,
Chang.
They are, Josh and the other person who was CC'd on his email to us is on vacation, I think maybe for another week or so.
Okay,
So,
good. So I have time to,
yeah, so
But,
again,
yeah.
we are not, this is not we're not looking at policy decisions. Those are for the board to make. We're just looking at the consultant's recommendations and making sure that the report doesn't, isn't missing something or is clear, or make sure that the language is clear. That's all.
my recommendations focus on a very small number of typos and some suggestions on how to make some of the exhibits clearer. And no changes in
Okay, that's-
substance,
I'm okay with that. I don't need to spend more time on it.
of course.
Yeah, okay, great. So now we do have Michael here and we've got Emily. So let us jump right into the schedule for that Farm and Place sent out several weeks ago. And let me
Yes,
just,
right here.
let me bring it up. Uh, Okay, so and it looks wavy because this is a photographed or a photocopied one. Okay, so this is the roadmap that
You're not
that-
sharing.
I'm not sharing. Thank you. I thought I was, but I'm not. Okay, so this was an email that Michael and John sent out. Oh, good Lord, embarrassingly enough, not July 2nd, 20th. I don't know when it was. It was some time ago. It was in June.
June
Uh,
21st.
Thank you. Rub salt in that wound. What we have in is what our next steps with Form in Place. And this is these are the recommendations. Everyone's seen them in their packet. These are the timelines. We just have to take when it says early July, move it to late July, very late July. So we still have to work on the contract with Form in Place, and that's something that I think we can start working with fairly soon. But I'd like to hear the board's thoughts about this schedule and how, is there something that you see missing? Is this something that, so I'm opening up the conversation to the board.
My initial reaction is that 3A is such a pressing issue that it's almost overwhelming. It's hard to think of the two separately. But let me just finish. Let me just look at this a little more.
So 3A is definitely something we are going to be working on. There is overlap, as we know, with the Lower North Main Street with 3A. But we do have, we had talked, we had wanted to bring both to town meeting in the spring, so
Mhm.
any thoughts from other members of the board?
I have thoughts about the schedule, that, it includes 3 community meetings between now and mid-November. It includes the creation of a working group that meets with the town's land use attorney. And it includes, working discussions of zoning and design guideline approaches. And then it includes drafting and, then the whole rollout to town meeting, which is town meeting members, briefings, the whole thing. And it's a really great outline of the things that we need to do to be successful in April of 2024. And it will require a full court press of time from every planning board member and every consultant that we can bring into this. And is an exact example of my discussion point earlier about the amount of outreach that needs to be done now. So I think it's a great outline, and I really appreciate Michael putting this all together. Oh, and it goes on because there's consensus and the whole thing about.
Yeah, I'll
getting
try
through
I
here.
can make it smaller, hopefully, and get it all to fit. There we go, all the way to number 8. Oh, there's also follow-up topics.
Right, there's follow-up topics, right, exactly. So, this is as big as 3A, and it's related to 3A, and it is something that we've committed to do, and we've hired consultants to provide us resources to help us do. It will be very difficult for this board to accomplish this without a town planner on board, even with all the help of our consultants. Unless everybody on the planning board is willing to work 10, 15 hours a week, every person. That's all I have.
Okay, Carrie, I Ching, thoughts?
I have to agree with that. I mean, I think without someone who can commit full-time work to these 2 huge undertakings, but I think as far as your question of the timeline, we've already delayed an entire month, and the endpoint is Springtown meeting. So I think it's going to get edited as we go. So I think the timeline in general is, it seems aggressive, but it also seems necessary. And it gives us a little bit of room to kind of keep having to adjust as we go. There's sort of like, and then a miracle occurs between January and town meeting. That would probably get compressed.
I Ching?
I don't know if I can add very much to it. I mean, with Sally's sort of binary choices, it's tough. I just would be I don't think that all of us would be committing 15 hours a week. And I'm afraid to lose momentum on this, but the amount of work here is pretty astounding. So I don't know what to.
Well, some of this work is definitely not just members of the board, right? That's why we are hiring consultants to help us with this. So I don't want to speak for them, but I would imagine that there would not, when I look at this, I see stuff that is being done in parallel by the consultants and stuff that the board will have to spend time on. I'm thinking back to our master plan days, and Carrie, maybe you have some memories of that, where we had really great help from our consultants in setting up the community meetings and running them, and doing things like that. And we do have, I think, the ability to get that done. So, I think there's a lot of work, but I don't think we have a choice in terms of losing momentum. We don't have a choice on 3A. I think we have great momentum on North Main Street, except for maybe the last several weeks, maybe a little longer. So I think this is a schedule that we can work with, but I do think it is going to require more participation from the board. And I don't know what form that will take.
And Diab, to follow on that, to your point about what are the things that we absolutely positively have to do. So the planning board was the impetus behind the master plan. It's in our state mandate or commission or charge to do master plans. And the board did that. A master plan is only as good as the time it spends off the shelf and in the hands of people implementing it. And implementing the master plan included dealing or addressing ways to best take advantage of and improve and make a vital part of our town to opportunity zones. The North Main Street Opportunity Zone and the Holton Swanton Cross Opportunity Zone. And then we also have on our plate 3A, which is positively a mandate. So if we don't think that we've found a candidate for the town planner, and we don't think that members of the board are willing to up their amount of hours per week, I think that we are in a position of only being able to do exactly what we're mandated to do because there's no more bandwidth. And that's really unfortunate, which is why I was excited about the progress we were making with hiring a town planner. But if I think without a town planner, I question whether there's any capacity on this board to do the amount of pay attention to details and follow up on action items that's required in this excellent roadmap.
Well, there's a specific call out for a working group. And so in looking beyond this planning board to create this group would be key to not only getting some of the work done, but also in winning the votes in spring town meeting.
That's a good point.
It's not all on us, right? It will be at least two of us.
I mean, is there any timing flexibility? I mean, to stretch it out a little bit.
What do you mean by that? We have two shots next year to do this. We can either do it in the spring or the fall.
I see.
If we do it in the fall and we don't get it done in the fall, then we either call a special town meeting. I mean, there's a.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we really only have two shots, and I don't think we want to count on the fall.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Mm-hmm.
I think
well, maybe we can get working groups and get our volunteer corps. I know that Carrie had mentioned that there were some strong volunteers in some of the groups that she worked in the past.
We had to go out and get them. So
right.
There's and that's why we have Emily on the line, I hope, to help us do that.
Segueing in at the 9:05
and it's past 9 o'clock.
Inflection point.
I think we should wrap up this conversation and give some kind of a communication right now to Michael about where the board thinks that the further work on North Main Street is going. And if we can't do that right now, we can listen to Emily walk us through the incredibly good framework that she came up with for how we're going to do community outreach around 3A, which, by the way, is going to be made more difficult by not having a town planner on staff. But I just have to have Michael sit here and not have us say anything about what we think we should do.
I think that that would be a good thing. I think I'm committed to this framework. I think this is something that I think we can combine efforts in terms of outreach to do both. So I think there's a significant overlap between these two projects, so that I think we can do it. So I'm committed to following through on North Main Street. I think that the board may take a different view of what to do with the light industrial and say maybe we don't look at that in the near future, that we put that off until, next year, and take that off of our plate, which I think it does two things. One is it does give us a little more flexibility with our budget. While we did go to town meeting and say we wanted X amount of money for light industrial, I think the fact that we are without a planner and we're going to need extra help to get us through 3A is I think that's a strong argument we can make for using some of that budget that we thought we would use for light industrial for 3A, seeing as how important it is. So I'm willing to, defend the board's decision to use that money in that regard. So I think that would be, I'm willing to go with that approach. Stick with North Main Street. Obviously, we continue with 3A and put off light industrial.
I think that makes sense from my perspective.
Yeah, I think that the focus is important.
Carrie, Sally?
Agreed.
I can understand how we would come to this conversation. And I just want to make sure that we don't lose the money, that we can transfer it.
We have, so you're talking about our current budget?
Budget for 2024, fiscal
Yes.
24, excuse me.
We have the ability to use what's in our consultant budget. We can move it to a different project. We cannot move between personal and general services, but within our general, which includes consultants, we have flexibility there.
Okay, that's good to know.
So I would also note that, if we had someone in the planning position, then they could help us write grants to get money from the state. So I just want to note that. Okay, so I'm going to open up the floor to, so Michael, I'm going to turn off screen share so I can actually see people, because I find it really bizarre. So, oh, there you are. I almost lost you there. So Michael, I think the board seems to want to continue. I don't think that the concerns expressed here have anything to do with the worthwhileness of the project and anything to do with form and place. It's just we were hoping that we would have a planner sooner rather than later.
Can I just interject, DM?
Oh yeah, please.
They're just sort of soaking in all the comments here. I guess I'm really curious to learn, what you guys have discussed to date with Emily about the outreach component and how these two things could dovetail potentially, because I think that is a critical piece for the North Main initiative at this point, to kind of get that out there, but get it out there with a solid framework around it. I feel like Sally, you made a presentation back in early June, and then I made one in sort of late June that I think made me feel like there was reasonably well articulated consensus on what was trying to be achieved, the goals that you had identified of a more density south of Clark, and ground floor commercial, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I feel like I'm just curious to try to, I mean, I'm looking at the schedule and I have some thoughts about, obviously, I don't think we're going to get to a community meeting until, late September at this rate. But there are logical things to do prior to that. And I'm just curious how it could dovetail with the general outreach approach on 3A that you've been talking about with Emily.
So what we have from Emily is this very detailed framework for communications. And Emily, rather than going through all of this, do you want to just join the conversation maybe and answer some of Michael's concerns?
Great.
Happy to, and good to see all of you again. So this particular framework is actually two types of approaches in response to the conversations I had with all of you. One is just an ongoing framework, ongoing general planning board communication to the residents, to the communities, what the planning board does, targeting new town meeting members or people who may become town meeting members, but also just the public in general. The second framework is targeted more towards specific projects, which could be North Main or could be 3A. And it is really specific to getting information about a project out, getting input from the public on that project, and being responsive to the input. So what I did to put the two of them together and show you all how that would work is actually work backwards from town meeting. And identify which framework was being used. So starting in May 2024, and then working backwards from that to think about, okay, we're starting with town meeting. When are we getting the information to town meeting members? When do you have the hearings? When do you have the zoning ready to go into the warrant before the hearings? How do you have the discussion before that? So in the glimpse that I had just now, as you had Michael's schedule on the screen, I think there's some places that there's overlap, particularly in September and October. You all were talking about the lack of capacity, or your concerns about the lack of capacity. I think it can be tricky when working with a community and there's multiple projects going on simultaneously. So making sure that you all understand how these different projects come together and are expressed kind of over the same period is going to be something we'll probably want to talk about and clarify. Tonight's a good start to that, but just so that the messaging that goes out is very clear that either there's one meeting for both projects and this is how they're going to be discussed, or meeting A is for project A, meeting B is for project B, being very clear about the messaging there, because there's a lot of overlap. Unsurprisingly, if you're going to town meeting in the spring with two projects, the timing is pretty much the same for both of them.
Right.
So it's not that it can't be done, because certainly communities do parallel planning processes all the time. And when I've done them before, I usually work with the other consultants who are doing them, and we try and have either a joint meeting or coordinate the meetings. That's standard practice. But because of what you're trying to do and that there is actually an overlap in the discussion, having the messaging be clearly thought through is going to be critical, I think, in this case. And that's a high level overview. I'm happy to go into any particular questions or comments about the frameworks.
So Emily, I agree with you that it would be very confusing to our public, our members of our community, to be unclear about which meeting they're going to for which purpose. And because there is an overlap between the two sites, that North Main Street was identified back in 2020 as an opportunity zone, and the MBTA in 2022 has published guidelines for compliance with 3A, and it's largely the same landmass. We absolutely should have a coordinated communications and outreach project and we can talk and be strategic about how you keep them separate at the same time. So people understand that this vote is for this and this vote's for that or whatever, but they're related, but not the same thing. So that I think that can be done. And coordination is essential, I think. So my question is, Emily, when you describe all this work, so let's go backwards in time. So here is on the bottom of page 6, build email lists. These are all the action verbs. Build the email list, update the web page, continue attendance at farmers market. This is me with my action verbs. Begin to do this, include this in our outreach, continue to do this. And my question is, if we don't have a planner to, and we don't have an actively participating planning board, is this something that our consultants would do on our behalf?
So, yeah, so different frameworks. Yes, is the answer. The short answer is yes. The consultants can do this on your behalf, although you will have to have some input into it, right? Because the consultants aren't going to know. No consultant walking into a community is going to know who has the best email lists. So you know, there's a back and forth input that's required. I think framework one, the last time I talked to you all, obviously, was as you were still getting in applications, I think, for the planner. So you had at that time hoped that you had one. I would say framework one is a little bit more reliant on you having a planner to help, because that's the ongoing communication. Framework two, which is project specific, it is very common to have the consultants handle most, consultant team handle most of those types of tasks with input, either from a planning board or from a working group.
And these are all communications related.
And these are all communications related. So what I would typically do, I'm sure Michael's done the same thing on many of his projects, is, I or my team would be creating the social media pieces. We might be running the website. Some clients, we run the website completely. Some clients, we just give them the materials and they post it on the town website. I've certainly built websites for clients before. We would be putting together the surveys or the questionnaires and sending them out. Typically, we ask that committee members, or not in your case, but in other cases, staff, to post the physical flyers. But I've attended community meetings before, like a farmer's market. I wouldn't do it every week, but I would pick a strategic one to attend. So yeah, there's a lot that a consultant team can help you with in the Framework 2 channel. And some of what would be gathered during that Framework 2 would then be available during your Framework 1. So for example, if there is a joint email list that's being built for the North Main Street and for 3A, that could then go into your ongoing communications for Framework 1 when you're ready to take up that part of the communications strategy.
Right.
Strategies, for example, for distinguishing the two projects. You can have a different color scheme, different icons, different graphics that indicate, okay, this meeting is about this one, this meeting is about that one, meeting we're talking about both. But just that clarity, both of the visuals as well as the language, can help with that.
So the other part of my question about success towards April involves one of the things that we need to do with our 3A zoning, where we're creating the overlay districts for multifamily by right, that we still haven't written the design guidelines to go into that zoning. And we understand, and I probably won't characterize it correctly because I don't know that I've read and reread what it says in the guidance from 2022. But I understand that design guidelines cannot be overly prescriptive, and they have to be feasible, and they cannot be subjective.
Correct.
And so My thought is that Michael has many, many times in his meetings with us, put on the table uh, phrases that and methods that planners use to incorporate into their zoning bylaw, not into a guidance document, but into a zoning bylaw, that because that's what 3A is asking us to do for these overlay districts. The language that Michael could help us craft, because he's had so much experience doing that. And I don't mean to say, Emily, that you haven't. I just don't know about that with you, but I know that about Michael.
So I can tell you that the sample zoning that EOHCD put out, or HLC put out, I helped write that sample zoning. So I'm very familiar with the requirements of it. And indeed, you can do two different things. One is development standards, which within the zoning itself, development standards are objective, very specific requirements. You can also create a separate design guidelines that focuses more on style, certain treatments of materials or landscape, but that would be an advisory document rather than anything that is a standard, a requirement would be within the zoning as a development standard. So you have basically two options to think about how the community could control or establish a preference for certain types of design standards, and then also the visual aspects of it in the guidelines.
So that whole question of creating the design standards and potentially associated guidelines is a project that would happen out of our planning department. Mm-hmm. And without a planning department, we would need to depend on one of you or both of you to help us do that. And I do know you've collaborated and so on, right, and so on. So it's not a crazy thing for me to say that. I just want to, sort of turn the conversation over to you and the rest of the board about whether that's a viable direction to talk about.
So we absolutely both have experience in design guidelines. We both have experience, I think, in zoning. Certainly it's one of my zoning, just zoning without design guidelines is one of my major areas of practice. And I generally have design guidelines and design and development standards in my zoning. I know Michael, of course, has done the same thing. So I would say either or both is a reasonable discussion to have. It makes a lot of sense with the North Main Street work that Michael's been doing is to coordinate those efforts in terms of the zoning and design guidelines. The worst outcome would be two different sets of zoning for the same place that don't coordinate. And that's not an area that the planning board wants to be in. It's
no,
also
that's
not an
option on the table.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah,
I think that, go ahead, Michael.
I would just interject that, I mean, Emily and I are just finishing up a comprehensive plan that we've been collaborating on up in Groveland. And many of these issues we've sort of been tag teaming, and Emily, you've sort of taken the lead on a lot of the community outreach aspects of things and generating the surveys and collating the feedback and all that. And we just have, in many, even though we have a lot of overlap, we have different areas of expertise. And I think actually, I don't want to speak for you, Emily, but I love the idea of collaborating on all those things. So that's useful.
So it seems like that in a way is a separate contract, because it's not community outreach. It's not North Main Street. It is essentially design guidelines and zoning. So I think that's something the board needs to, legally, the board has to talk about it and come up with a separate contract.
I think in addition to the contract, the board needs to come up with the grounding principles that the design guidelines are built on.
Yes,
right?
so that's where I would say the policy comes in. And so I think Iching, you had mentioned this probably about 10 years ago, that we should have a working group for 3A. And so I think that part of that working group is to engage with the members of our community who have design concerns. And so I know, for instance, that we certainly have two members of this board who have expressed grave concerns about what's happening downtown. We have the design review committee who has their opinions. I think that there may be others in our community who also want to be part of that discussion. I think obviously they can't all jump on a phone call with Emily and Michael because that is chaos. So we do have to come up with a means of making sure everyone's time is used efficiently, but that we get that outreach. And I think that's really important. I think in my mind, that is the most difficult part of 3A is to understand what people's concerns are and to address them to the fullest extent possible under the law. And I think that
That's what outreach does.
Yeah, I think the key thing is understanding the limitations of what's possible, but also understanding how much we can actually do. I just don't, I am very optimistic about our ability to do things that will work well for the town and still embrace the fundamentals of why the state wants us to do this.
Oh, I'm optimistic about that too. Absolutely.
So I think that what we now have to come up with is that we have ongoing, so we need to come up with scopes of work. I think both Michael and Emily, you presented us with some very good scope of work. I think Emily, yours is, Michael, yours was, at the bottom of it, you said, this is we should continue our discussion about this.
Well,
And
he also had future
so
follow-up topics.
So I would suggest that maybe we have a meeting very soon to talk about that. And Emily, if the board is okay with Emily's framework, we can go right ahead and just. I think it's a little easier to sign off on that one just because. I don't know why. It's because it's 9:30 at night, and that's the way.
So the choices.
To be fair, I think I should probably that is an outline. I think there's probably a few things that we could flesh out. Maybe not at 9:30 at night, to be a little bit more specific to translate into a scope of work. It's not quite at a full scope of work, but it's close. It wouldn't take too much to get it there.
And when we talk about some of the implementation things, like if we decided to do at least some of framework one, is what I would call the rubber hits the road, it's the fingers hit the keyboards. Is that happening in your shop?
Depending on what it is, it could be. Yeah, depending on which elements of framework one you want, there are certainly elements that we can help you with.
And then all the other ones in framework two, which all is related to what we need to get done.
Yeah, I would suggest on the framework one, going back to the conversation you had earlier about prioritizing your efforts. Maybe this may or may not be the year. I can go both ways on this. This may or may not be the year you want to do that open house for Newtown meeting members. On the other hand, it may be the most critical year to do that. So just have another look at that and your overall schedule. But
I think that we can do the first annual on a limited number of better practices. Exactly. As much as our capacity allows, but specifically in support of 2 April zoning warrant articles.
Yes.
Yeah, for some reason, Sally and I apologize. This reminds me of the annual going out of business sale for rug companies, but no, it'll be the first annual with repeated ones. So I'm sorry. Neurons are firing strangely this evening. So I would love to, so we have 3 contracts, we have 3 scopes of work to talk about. I would really love to get other members of the board in on this conversation. It's just, July is gone. August is going to be insanely hectic for me at work. So I will not have as much time as I've been doing now to do things during the day. It's just,
Yeah.
so as someone who, someone who can come in on discussions on scope of work, setting up, talking about who to bring in from our community for design guidelines. These are all things I think that, I would really appreciate help from the rest of the board on this, because August is going to be very difficult for me. So,
And I think one of the constraining things is open meeting law. That if the minute that we get more than two of us in a meeting or on the phone, and especially if one of them then talks to the next one, and that constitutes serial communications, those events cannot discuss policy. They can only discuss operational tasks. Is that correct?
yeah, that's, if we want to go and get very specific, I think, yeah, if we don't do.
Because it would be great if two or three of us, whoever's available, can sit down and hash out operational tasks and not go to policy.
Do that, and to be honest, if we can schedule the meeting at least 72 hours in advance, we can always post it. I don't think there's a problem, I hope, with either Michael or Emily, talking about this in public, unless there's a contractual thing that we can do in executive session. I really, I don't. Again, most of this would have been done if we had a town planner. We don't have to worry about these issues. So,
right. As for moving forward with Emily and Michael, I could make a motion that we invite them to collaborate on a proposal to help us with design guidelines and revisions to the zoning language for GBD 2 and 3, and creation of the zoning language for the 3A district, overlay district.
yeah, of course my brain is firing late. The one thing we do have to worry about is the section 30 stuff. I think that's the mass thing about, if it's over 10K, then we need to do
I mean, an RFP.
So what we need to do is get an idea of how much the cost will be, so we can understand what the process from our side is. And I'll work with our, we have a really excellent person in the house who knows all of this stuff, so I can speak with Meg and make sure that we're doing this cleanly.
And then the other thing I would say is this notion of forming a working group. And I Ching, would you be willing to like write down your ideas about who could be on this working group and just sort of spring that conversation?
Yeah, I'll have a talk with you off of this, but is there going to be a working group for this and 3A? I feel like 3A also needs a lot of community engagement, or is
it's one working group talking about how the planning board is going to be successful in April, and all of the pieces.
Well,
I'll try.
Go ahead, Diab.
I would suggest that we let the professionals tell us how many working groups we need at the moment. What we need to do is come up with a list of community members who we think should be involved. And if we have two working groups or one working group, it doesn't matter. It's just that those are the people that are important. So I think everyone has they are in contact with different people in town. So think about who you think would be good. There are people who've been on boards before who, I can think of people who were working on the Center Business District 10 years ago who might be really important to have on board in a working group, because they have experience as to how they came about with the design guidelines at that time and things like that. So
so maybe this week you guys can send me that. I can collect that and figure out some way to get that going.
And the time is of the essence on that task, because it takes time for, once you identify a working group, to reach out, invite them, have them say yes, and pick a meeting date.
Right. One way would be to contact the chairs of boards, right? And ask them if they have.
Yeah, I think that's one way. There are, but I think we need lots of community members. So, you know, I whatever, it's
what I
late.
think.
I'm not
All
gonna.
right, send
can't-
whoever to me.
Okay, I Ching is our contact person for contacts. Okay, so, Emily and Michael, I think I personally reached the end of my ability to
Yes.
think this evening. It's not yet 9:45, but it's close enough for government work. So if, I think we have an idea of how we're going moving forward on this. And then, the only other thing I would say, is for the board, we will have a meeting next Monday or Tuesday. Yeah, so if we'll figure it out offline. when
Which
we can
would
meet,
be
talk about the plan.
July 30th or 31st or August 1st.
Yeah, I think
Right.
it's likely to be August 1st, to be honest, just in terms of getting things posted.
Okay, so August
And
1st.
then during the day, if possible, if other members wanted to.
I will set up I'll send out a when to meet and you can all
Okay.
call
Good.
box and we'll figure it out. So
Emily and Michael, thank you both so much for coming to this meeting. It gives us
Yes.
hope for the future.
the sun coming up every morning gives us hope for the future. At least- okay, so thank
A
you all.
motion to adjourn?
I would love a motion to, Richard is giving us the thumbs up. Thank you, Richard. 2 thumbs up. Excellent. So a motion to adjourn, please.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Yes, please, second.
Okay, all those in favor, do a dance. No, this isn't TikTok. I Ching,
Aye.
Sally,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
Gary.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Thanks to WinCam. Thanks to Nancy Pocari, our recording secretary. Thanks to, where are you, Brian Manter, assistant town engineer. Thanks to Emily and Michael for showing up. Thanks to all of our audience members. Who am I missing? Thanks to everyone out in TV land. We will see you guys probably in a week. Have a great
Great.
evening, everyone.
Good night,
Bye.
everyone.
Good night.
Aye.